mind if I do. I switched order. Okay. It's almost like added gel because I have such Guido hair. I'm really sorry that I had to borrow my little brother's shirt today, which is 3 sizes too small. I'm just kidding. I don't have a little brother. This is my style. Like I said, I'm a poet, so hug me afterwards. Be nice. Okay. I'm going to try to do a funny one. Do we have any Muslims in the audience? Wait, awesome. This poem is called Religious Harmony, and it started, like, I always say, like, comedians are, like, funny, and they, like, build all these, like, oh, like, I'm going to build this storyline off this. Like, I have one conversation with somebody, and they say, like, one dumb thing, and I'm like, oh, fuck you. And I'm like, I want to write a poem because I'm angry at you. So I was having this conversation with a Jewish guy, and it was going on for, like, a half an hour, and he was basically, we're arguing about politics, and finally he said, he's like, well, what are you? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, are you Sunni or are you Shia? And I was like, what? That's like one of those you should already have been slapped, like 70s, like open hand slapped in the face questions. And I was like, well, I'm neither. And he's like, what? And I was like, oh, well, you know, my parents are Greek Orthodox, like Palestinians. And he's like, oh, he's like, I get it. And if anybody's ever had the I get it question, like response, it's like, oh, you're one of the reasonable ones. And so at that point, I wanted to be very non-stereotypical and smack him across the face with a baseball bat, but I decided to write this poem instead. And yeah, it's angry. Not a bit, I don't own a baseball bat. It's not like I'm like, well, let me just take the baseball bat on myself. Just saying, like, metaphorically, like with these words that are like baseball bats. So, leave me alone, Remi. Okay. At least I'm not informal. Okay, so it's called Religious Harmony. They say I'm one of the good ones. You can't tell by my skin color, but it's inherent in my breath. Heart soft, temper mellow, enlightened from fingertips to welcoming smile. And yet I don't have enough ink, don't have enough minutes, years, or lifetimes to write down all their names, written in red on the wall, slaughtered. If I hear one more jackass ask my religion and think that one or the other would define and shape my worldview, I'm gonna flood their people, kill their firstborn, burn some witches, and have them drink at a separate water fountain because I'm a real Christian, just like you. Turned perverted into pedagogy. This Jewish guy tells me, my grandparents were just as oppressed as his grandparents by the Muslims in Palestine. Really? Last I checked, it was Jewish rifles held against temples that dispossessed Haifa and Jaffa, Irgun and Stern gang bombings that formed an ethnocentric state that didn't recognize Muslims or Christians as equals. Ayan Hirsi Ali wants to talk about dhimmis, but conveniently forgets Palestinian third-class status as the indigenous population. Not gonna have some values-preaching, hypocritical house rep tell me what's wrong with all those Muslims. Maybe I'll start listening to him when he stops starving Jesus is poor, aborting black and Latino lives on death row, and overstepping the homeless people on the way into his Whole Foods. And so, they do that. And for the so-called high and mighty liberal secularists, just because you don't call it a religion doesn't mean radical capitalism hasn't destroyed this nation. With your grimy bankers and bailouts, liberals didn't mind destroying a country when they thought they could do it on the cheap and plant a Starbucks at every street corner and then blame George Bush when shit hit the fan. Now, I don't know if this is a PSA or a poem, but I was raised Christian and still can't see how that matters. Hear Friday prayers walking to the subway in Brooklyn, visit every quarter in Jerusalem, never knew religion by name but had faith in my people, know that xenophobia is in vogue, and I mean honestly, I've never been that cool. But then again, maybe this all emanates from a religiously enlightened worldview that I'm predisposed to based on my Christian roots. But maybe it's more simple. Maybe those that monolithically castigate 1.4 billion people are recalcitrant idiots, the true image of what they think the other is, the actual ultra evil that's created its own axis in which it fiendishly rules without knowing. I don't really talk about religion much, but I'm like, man, they write one for a dummy. There are a lot of dumb people in this country. But I'm an American, so it makes me sometimes feel dumb that I live in, I mean, I guess I don't travel that much to, I don't know, other stupid places. But they're real stupid here. So thank you guys for making them unstupid. This is called Home. This is another identity piece, and it's like the last one, but not funny. Yay. I'm bootleg. I get like a set list and I like write it on my phone. And Stop looking at me or I can't remember the line. Oh, okay, anyway. I didn't grow up in a refugee camp. I grew up here, comfortable, able not to know or care, choose my own blood type, close the book, turn off the TV, forget the stories. A gay man once asked me, why do you give a damn about Palestine? Why not, I replied. Why did men and women clench fists and fight back at the Stonewall, push through Matthew Shepard hate crimes legislation in Congress? I care about Palestine for the same reason I can't stomach watching Schindler's List. Still can't comprehend why kids in my neighborhood picked on Michael Paul for being Jewish. Was 10 years old the first time someone called me a sand nigger. And I don't hate the town I grew up in, but I don't forget those experiences either. The way white women on the block talk down on my brown mother. Don't forget the stories, pretend it didn't happen. Don't feel the need to dream up an alternative American childhood, as if its vision ever intended to include me. People fight back because they identify. My grandmother still fills tear ducts with longing memories of Jaffa, a home we in America take for granted. I don't ask anyone to forget about the Holocaust or feel as Jewish because I grew up on Long Island. Not gonna have someone tell me where my loyalties lie, because my physical environment should define who I am. Remembrance is part of action. Never again applies to many peoples. I'm a product of America, but no less Palestinian. Palestine being that fight for freedom and justice, not just low valleys, beautiful sunsets, and fig trees, not just my grandparents' house in Jaffa that's still standing, not just a place I nervously visited, could barely catch a cab in Arabic, yet welcomed like they were expecting my return. Home, in the realest sense. I'm Palestinian. I was born in America. That is who I am. Talking to myself like I don't have a mic on. So, yeah. And there's a lot of friendly faces in the audience. We have Abdullah, we have the New York crew, we got Jersey representation. I get excited about this. I think one of the greatest things about being a poet is that, you know, at first it was like I was saying really harsh stuff, or what was seemingly harsh, and my message was so much softer back in the day. And it's, you know, I moved to New York City 4 months before 9/11, and when those 2 towers came down, I was living in the Bronx. And a lot of the vitriolic statements and a lot of the anger and the hatred wasn't coming from, you know, kids I went to college with, but it was coming from like communities I looked to, like people of color in the Bronx. So for me, it's like when I'm looking for energy, when I'm looking for, you know, a sense of solidarity and a way forward, like I looked at the anti-apartheid struggle, I looked at the civil rights movement. So that's I think one of the reasons, aside from being Palestinian, that made me want to pick up a pen. So this next poem, because I'm super original with titles, is called Israel, America, a Rambling Poem 2. And this doesn't really have a lot to do, this is kind of like a Fort Hoodish